On December 19, 1990, inside a small engineering shop in Miami, Florida, 66-year-old Matilda Nestor and her 67-year-old husband, Jacob Nestor, were attacked during a robbery. By the time police arrived, both had been fatally stabbed. Even though the knife had pierced Jack's heart, he still managed to retrieve his .22 caliber pistol and fire 5 shots, one of which struck the attacker in the head, before finally succumbing to his wounds. When the attacker's identity was later revealed, it would shock everyone. Matilda Nestor, who went by Dolly, and Jacob Nestor, who went by Jack, were high school sweethearts from Brooklyn, New York, who later moved to Miami in the 1960s to build a life together. Over the years, they raised 2 children, welcomed 4 grandchildren, and built their small engineering shop called Nestor Engineering from the ground up. Jack was known as both an inventor and an artist, and held 16 patents for medical instruments used by plastic surgeons. Dolly worked alongside him, managing the business and helping to keep everything running. They were also known for hiring people from the local community who were struggling or in need of temporary work by providing odd jobs and cleaning tasks at their medical instrument shop, paying them daily once the tasks were complete. It had always worked out well until they hired Victor Tony Jones on December 17, 1990, and 2 days later, he would do the unthinkable. On the day of the murders, on December 19, 1990, Jones demanded money from Dolly, but she declined to pay him until after he finished his assigned task for the day. This pissed him off, and he decided they had to die because they owed him money. As Dolly was entering the bathroom at the rear of the building, Jones approached her from behind and stabbed her once in the neck and back, severing her aorta and killing her almost instantly. Jack had heard the commotion, and as he was making his way toward the bathroom from the main office, he encountered Jones, who stabbed him once in the chest, puncturing his heart. Despite the fatal wound, Jack engaged in a physical struggle with Jones that reportedly lasted 20 to 25 minutes. He even managed to retreat into his office and pulled the knife from his own chest. He then attempted to use the telephone to call for help, but the call failed to go through. So he unholstered the .22 caliber automatic pistol that he kept on his belt and fired 5 shots from his office, striking Jones once in the head. While it didn't save his own life, it at least stopped a crazed killer from harming anyone else. Once Jones was shot, it disoriented him and kept him at the scene until police arrived, where he was found bloody and slumped over on a couch near Jack's body. Upon searching him, they found money and a pocketbook belonging to the Nestors in his possession. When he was asked what happened, he responded, and I quote, "The old man shot me," but initially refused to provide further details. He was then handcuffed and taken to the hospital to be treated for the gunshot wound to his forehead. While in the ICU, his motive became clear when he told a nurse he had to leave because he had killed those people. When asked why, he stated, and I quote, "They owed me money and I had to kill them." The police were only notified because a UPS delivery driver had discovered the scene after looking through a mail slot and seeing legs and blood on the floor. He then alerted a neighbor who called emergency services. Sadly, both Dolly and Jack were pronounced dead at the scene. In January 1991, Jones was indicted by a grand jury on 2 counts of first-degree murder, armed robbery, and possession of a firearm by a felon. 2 years later, in 1993, he was found guilty on all counts, and the jury unanimously agreed on the death penalty for the murder of Jack, but the jury couldn't agree on that level of punishment for Dolly's murder. For 30 years, Jones' attorneys fought the sentence, citing his intellectual disability and severe abuse he suffered at Florida reform schools like Okeechobee. However, on September 30th, 2025, after all final appeals were rejected, Jones was executed by lethal injection at a Florida state prison. He declined to give a final statement. In attendance was Dolly and Jack's daughter, Irene Fisher. She stated that she had forgiven him, but also said that justice had finally been served. On the morning of September 28, 2004, Jennifer Heisler, a friend and coworker of 25-year-old Nori Ann Jones, and their supervisor, Mark Mayfield, became concerned when Nori failed to show up for work. So they drove to her home she'd been renting, having no idea they were about to walk in on a horrific crime scene that would change their lives forever. Nori Ann Jones was born on January 13, 1979, in Rexburg, Idaho, and was described by friends and family as a farm girl who was known for her contagious laugh and for being kind. In school, she was an athletics student who participated in track and competed in the shot put. After graduating in 1997, she enrolled at Ricks College, now known as BYU, Idaho, and earned her associate's degree 2 years later. She then relocated an hour south to Pocatello, Idaho, and began working at several local employers, including J.C. Penney and Convergys. She then got a job working at the Idaho Department of Commerce and Labor. She also took things to the next level with her good friend Rio Wild, and by 2004, they were pretty much spending all their time together, specifically at his place. Then sometime between March and September, they got engaged. Nori already had a ring she'd purchased with $1,000 of her own money she had saved up, and she was very proud of it. She had purchased it in March because a man she worked with by the name of Robert Spillett had been harassing her, and she wanted him to leave her alone. She thought that if Spillett believed she was married, it would deter the unwanted advances. She even made sure to show him the ring and informed him she was engaged to be married, hoping it would finally put a stop to his harassment once and for all. Unfortunately, it didn't help, and he continued coming back to the job service office to see Nori. While Nori had been staying with Rio pretty much full-time now, on September 28, 2004, she decided to go home because she wasn't feeling well and wanted to get some much-needed rest. This unfortunately put her at the wrong place at the wrong time. At around 2 a.m., Nori's neighbor, George Ratz, began hearing his dog barking uncontrollably toward Nori's house. The barking continued until approximately 6 a.m. 3 hours later, her supervisor and friend arrived at the home and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. So they let themselves in and tragically found Nori stabbed to death in her bedroom and immediately called the Pocatello Police Department. Investigators would find evidence of a violent struggle in the bedroom, including the mattress being askew and practically hanging off the bed. As for Nori, she'd been stabbed and cut more than 20 times in the head area and had multiple defensive wounds on her arms and hands. On the floor, near her body, was the engagement ring that she had worked so hard to buy. As for how the killer got in, investigators determined the person had entered the home through the bedroom window by climbing onto a garbage can and cutting a screen on a window. The window frame, ring, and other trace materials were collected, including fingerprints from the window and a porch door. But in 2004, there was no way to connect that evidence to a specific suspect. In 2010, the Idaho State Police got a huge break in the case when a fingerprint was run through the national database and matched to a man named Brad Scott Comfer. In 2011, they brought Comfer in for an interview and asked if he knew Nori Jones or had ever been to her home on Pole Line Road, and he replied, "I have never been to that house ever." When presented with the fingerprint evidence, he replied, "I have no idea how my prints got there." He then commented that there was a lot of stuff he didn't remember doing. Interestingly, during his interview, one of the detectives noticed scars on Comfer's arms, which he believed were defensive wounds from the struggle with Nori. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough physical evidence to tie him to the murder, and the case eventually stalled. Then in 2014, the TV show Cold Justice, including Kelly Siegler and Yolanda McClary, traveled to Pocatello to assist local police with the investigation. Now that advancements had been made in DNA technology, they urged the department to have the diamond ring and window frame tested. With Comfort still on their radar, they began surveilling him and observed him discard a cigarette on a public street, which they immediately retrieved to obtain a sample of his DNA, and lo and behold, it was a match. Not only was his DNA found on the window frame, but also on Nori's diamond engagement ring, which had been knocked to the floor during the struggle. His DNA also matched the DNA recovered from Nori's sexual assault kit. On September 10, 2014, nearly 10 years after Nori's death, Brad Comfort was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and a deadly weapon enhancement. Unfortunately, due to mental competency battles, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the removal of the death penalty from the case, justice was delayed another 10 years. Throughout the trial, the defense continued suggesting that the actual murderer might be Robert Spillett, the man who had been harassing Nori. However, the jury found this theory unlikely, and on March 4, 2024, they found Comfort guilty on all charges and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. To this day, he remains incarcerated at the Socorro Correction Center in Eloy, Arizona.